Good afternoon, everyone, and happy winter. It has arrived, but I think it's going to leave us before Christmas, so it came a little bit early. But anyway, this is Madeline Wilson at the Indiana Hospital Association, and I thank you all for joining us today to talk about the changes that are occurring with the ARC Culture of Patient Safety Survey that will be starting in January. I know some of you are probably aware of that. There have been some changes coming up, and we wanted to make sure that everybody had all the information, especially if you have an interest in IHA conducting your survey for you. Just a little bit of history, especially if you're new to your position or to the survey process. As an IHA member, we do offer this service to all of our hospitals free of charge. So no cost to you for us to do the survey for you. I think that most of you know that, but a few of you have asked that question, so I wanted just to point that out right out of the gate. So let's talk a little bit about why the change. A couple of years ago, ARC started taking some questions and answers about, in their FAQs, about what people thought about the survey. As a lot of you have been doing this for a while have known, the survey has been the same, and there have been a fair share of griefs that I think we've all experienced with the survey, especially when it comes to our staff filling the survey out and then getting feedback from them, because you really want to assess your whole culture of your hospital. So even though the survey says that you can offer it to certain groups of people, you really want to know what your whole team, which is everyone who works in your organizations, you want to know how they view safety in your organization when it comes to taking care of your patients. But the problem is many of these questions are so clinically focused, and so ARC started getting a lot of feedback with that, and they decided to take this feedback and tailor their survey and build a pilot for some hospitals to voluntarily run alongside of their standard survey. And from that, they were able to get some information and tweak it. So from going through a couple iterations of the pilot survey, it was October when they finally settled on a final survey. And there are 5 topic areas that really stood out as needing changes. The first one was the rewording of some of the complex survey items that made it just really a little bit difficult to translate. And I'll tell you, one way that you could really understand that people didn't understand some of these questions is when the same question was essentially asked 2 ways. One, it was negatively worded, and one, it was positively worded. If you see those answers being the same, as in agree and agree, then you knew that that question probably was not understood correctly, because it should have been opposite. So that's something that whenever I help with survey analysis, I do look closely at some of those questions to make sure that people understand those questions. So that was the very first thing. The second area was adding a does not apply or don't know response option. So if you recall in the survey, that wasn't a choice. What many people have done is they have just decided, I'm just not going to answer that question because maybe it didn't pertain to their job function or what they did. So the bad thing about that is if they do that for several of the questions on the survey, it then makes us have to throw that survey out because there aren't enough responses on the survey, and it's flagged as an incomplete survey. So you really don't want that either, because for the questions that they did answer, I'm sure it's very valuable data, and we basically have to throw it out because it is considered an incomplete survey. So with that being said, adding a does not apply or don't know is an actual answer on the survey. So for the new 2.0, everybody will be counted as long as they respond. The third very important change is shifting to a just culture framework instead of response to error. A lot of the questions basically circled around, somebody made this mistake and this is how we responded to it. And that's not really what we should be focusing on. For years we've been teaching, all the way back to error is human and developing a just culture where we want people to report. We want people to be able to speak up for safety. And so we need them to understand what just culture is. So ARC did some changing around their wording and their questions to center on just culture instead of the word error. The fourth is another very, very big one, and one that we are very excited for because this has been the most challenging to assess in your survey and to have to adjust when your survey goes into the ARC tool for the analysis to count up what your results are. And that is revising the staff positions and the unit and work areas. And I'm going to show you here in a couple slides what the big changes have been to expand upon what actual staffing positions are and work areas. It is so much better, so we're very excited about that. And then the fifth question was for them to determine if the number of negatively worded items could be reduced. So we didn't have so many of those negative worded items. So those were the 5 things that they focused on. So what changed between the 1.0 and the 2.0? Well, as you see on the slide, 1.0 had 51 survey questions. The 2.0 has 40, so 11 less questions. In the survey, only 5 of the 1.0 survey questions were kept unchanged for the new survey. Only 5 questions remain the same. For the rest of the questions, 21 of the 1.0 questions were dropped. 25 were reworded or the response choices changed. And there were 10 new survey items added to the 2.0. So some pretty significant changes. So domains. This is another very, very important area. In the 1.0 survey, there were 12 domains that were assessed during the survey. In the new survey, there are now only 10. So why this is important to know. Going forward, we will no longer be able to compare your survey results over time. And the reason being is we don't have apples to apples to measure anymore. We had 12 domains and now we're going to 10. I will tell you that the new domains, the 10, are still iterations of the old 12 with some combining of some areas. And so in this transition period, even though we're going to be starting from square one, I will be able to help you compare your last survey results. So if you're doing the survey in 2019, the 2.0, we will be able to sit down and kind of give you an idea in some of these categories of where you have improved or maybe not improved. We just won't be able to put it on your executive summary that shows your results over time because we're starting from square one. So don't panic that, we put all these performance improvement activities in place to try to improve on, say, our hospital handoffs and transitions, and how will we know if we improved or not? Well, we still have a category called handoffs and information exchange. So we'll look at your questions between the two surveys, and I'll be able to help you discern if you have some improvements or not. So this is very important to know going forward. So let's talk about the demographics. This is what I just talked about. On the old 1.0, we basically had on the left of your screen in the blue, A through N, these were the staffing positions that that you had to choose from. This is where we really kind of got tripped up, because if you look, it did not assess all areas of your staff. And this is where we offered a crosswalk, and we had to do some really special tool usage to kind of convert your crosswalk choices to fit into the Our Culture survey. Well, we won't be doing that anymore, because now, as you can see on the right side, it is now expanded, and it pretty much covers about any type of position in your hospital that you will see. And also, I meant to say this in the beginning. This survey change is for the hospital survey only. The ambulatory surgery center and the medical office surveys have not been changed, just the hospital survey. So when you look over here on the right, you can see these areas have now been expanded upon. You know, the leaders, the clinical leaders and staff leaders and supervisors are all broken down into different categories, which is very important when you're looking at your responses for leadership support for patient safety, because we're looking at a difference between a C-suite and an actual clinical manager perhaps on your unit. Then if you look down, we now have facilities, food services, EBS, housekeeping, security. We have IT in here. We have quality. We have all of the positions that are expanded upon. So I think that we'll be able to cover all bases through those positions. The other demographic is where people work. So on the left side, you see basically it was just broken down to surgery, OB, peds, ED, and that really wasn't enough, because a lot of you have other units that fall, say, under medicine, and we were having to crosswalk that as well. Well, now they have expanded. On the right side of the screen, you'll see all of the ones in red, how they are expanded and how all of those fall into those categories. And I am glad that they have added these departments, and you know, as you can see here, quality, risk, and patient safety have their own department. That was not seen on the old survey. And surgical services, that was another area that really people wanted broken down into for pre-op and OR and anesthesiology. And so we have a better breakdown of those units. And so we won't be using a crosswalk anymore. And I will tell you how we can help you here coming up for some more specific units. So as I mentioned before, it was added to the end of the question, the does not apply or don't know. So when you are rolling out your question or your introduction for your patient safety survey, put that in your statement about, you know, please, we ask that you respond to each question. If it does not pertain to you, please use the does not apply or don't know, because we really want you to have all of your people recognized, and so we really need people to answer those questions so that they don't get removed from your final count. Here's an example of how the wording makes a difference. So going down to the second line, the 1.0, use the example, when one area in this unit gets really busy, others help out. So in order to keep the integrity of that question, they just changed the verbiage to during busy times, staff in this unit help each other out. So this is what's really interesting about that. During the pilot survey, these are the things that they looked at, and they did the comparison between the questions. On the 1.0 or the original survey, 70% answered that question positive. But the very same question, just worded a little bit differently, on the new question, got an 86% positive score. Now, that is the same person taking both of these surveys at the same time. That's a difference of 16%. And as you can see, it was all just because they changed the wording of the question. So very interesting in that, but this is just one example of how the wording makes a difference. So the impact of the new survey. What ARC has stated is that the new survey during the pilot studies have been pretty much all of the scores have been higher than the 1.0 comparison, which is good. That makes people very happy. And so I just gave you one question example of how the positivity came in. I thought I'd show with you with some of the largest score difference when you're looking at all of the dimensions. And some of the biggest ones, response to error. So the same questions asked 2 different ways on the old versus the new went up 18 points. Handoffs and information exchange went up 18 points. Communication openness went up. Reporting patient safety events. And then over on the right, everything went up except for one category. And that's the hospital management support for patient safety. And the reason why that is really important is, as I just showed you 2 slides back, there is now a breakdown that distinguishes between what is a C-suite administrative leader to you and what is your clinical leader. So it might be your nurse manager or your nurse director versus overall system or hospital leadership. So this is where one of the big changes in the dimensions showed up. So when is this going to start? We wanted to start the year off fresh with all of our new surveys for 2020. So starting January 1st, we are transitioning over to the new 2.0 survey. So if you are an organization that is doing the every other year survey, and it's your year, so you will start with your new 2.0 survey. So we just wanted to start the year fresh. The 1.0 ARC is still going to have that. They haven't given a final date yet, even though they have requested that administrators such as the hospital associations and us as your administrator try to do your conversion sooner rather than later, and so we chose January 1 to start our new year off. For the database submission, some of you have chosen to have your data anonymously submitted to ARC, and that helps develop the database information that you receive, so you can see how you benchmark nationally against other organizations, where your facility fits in with others who have submitted this information, kind of helps with some of your planning. We at IHA submit to ARC your data file with that information. It is anonymous. It's not flagged to your individual facility, even though you do get a specific report after the database is completed. We will be able to still submit all of your data, even the data from 19 and beyond. The data submission period will be in June. From June 1st through July 20th, that we'll be submitting that information, and that will be for all surveys that are conducted between 2017 and 2020. So those of you who choose to do 2020 survey this year, you'll have a little bit different look on your database than those who are doing a 2019 survey submission. So nothing will change with that. We'll still be doing all of that for you. ARC did have a recorded webinar and with several slide presentations and things that talk about all of their changes, and it gets a little bit in depth about their statistics and why they made the decisions that they did. And on the slide presentation that we will have available for you after the webinar, there are some links on here that you can go to the ARC website and you can review their webinars that they had. And also there are several documents and resources on there that help you with your planning of your survey, and we too can help you with that planning as well. But this just gives you a little bit more background, especially if you need to have this conversation with your executive teams for them to understand that, going forward, your survey, we're all starting from a new square one together with this new survey. So there is some additional resources from ARC. We also have a patient safety culture toolkit that we have revamped that basically just helps you with your navigation through the process and gives you some resources and this information that you can also share with your executive team about the survey process and helps you understand whether you would like to do this or not. So we will have this available as well on our website. And now I wanted to open up the floor for any questions anybody might have about the survey going forward. And just remember, we're going to open everybody's lines up, so keep your phone on mute, of course, unless you have questions. And then Casey will also be looking at the chat room as well.
I did have a question.
Go ahead.
Does any of this apply to the ambulatory, or is it all, like, any of the changes, or is it all just setting?
Well, I'm having a little bit of hard time understanding you, but I think you asked if the changes apply to ambulatory or just the hospital. And this new survey is just for hospital surveys, not for your ambulatory site or for ambulatory surgery centers. Same survey.
Okay. Thank you.
What am I thinking of? Was an imaging. CPT. Okay. Do I look out dates?
I see we have a question in the chat box. Do we need to have our survey completed by July 2020 to submit to ARC for inclusion in the database?
And looking at
No.
procedures without provider.
If you could put your phone on mute if you're not asking a question, we have some background noise. All right, thank you. In response to the, do you have to have your surveys completed by July to be entered into the database? No, yes, and no. The yes is if you choose to do it by July, it will be included in the next database, but if you don't get in this database, you'll get into the next database submission, and that's every 2 years. So you will down the path, but any surveys completed after July will be in the next database submission, which will occur in 2022.
The report that clearly running was based on procedure data. And one that Sherry had
Any other questions?
put in was not on our list. We discovered that the procedure data.
Was deleted.
Well, as I said, once again, I'm Madeline Wilson. I along with Karen Kennedy, manage the survey process. Karen does all the data part as far as doing the data analysis portion with the ARC tool, and then I get you set up for the survey, and then once I get the analysis done, or Karen gets the analysis done, then I will get that submitted to you and work with you on, if you need to have a one-on-one to review your results, we would love to do that with you, to help in any way we can with an understanding to break down your survey. And I know that this next year will be a big year, especially as we go from the new survey and kind of helping you understand what changes you will make. I will tell you, we have a question from Patty. You will not, if you signed a non-expiring contract agreement the ARC agreement, you won't have to sign a new one. It is a basic, just saying that you allow ARC to use your hospital information for the survey process. We will have you complete a campaign request because that information has to be submitted for the database information as well and for the toolkit. So there will be, I will look and see if you signed one of the non-expiring contracts, but we'll have you fill out a campaign request.
Madeline, this is Linda Webb. So you'll just automatically send us those campaign requests because we're probably scheduled to do ours in March of 2020.
Yes, we'll have, and I know a couple of you have already reached out to me about doing the survey, and we will have the new campaign request posted. And for those of you that have already reached out to me, I will send to you the new campaign request. I do see someone asked if you have not signed the contract or CEO has changed. You need to just let me know that, and I'll just send you a new contract.
Thank you, Madeline.
And slides will be available. Casey will have them posted by the end of the week. She said probably tomorrow she'll have them posted. And it'll be good because you'll have all your links on here as well. And anything, as you're looking over this, please feel free just to reach out to me with any questions that you have or, anything, and even questions that you might have for ARC. I've developed a good relationship with them, so I can reach out to them at any time as well.
The slides will be available on the IHA website. I'll send out a link. Actually, in the patient safety newsletter that goes out this afternoon, there's a link there. But I'll make sure you know where they're located. It's on there's a page under topics that is culture of safety is where they're located. But I'll make sure it's clear where they're located, the slides and the recording as well.
Well, all right. If there's no more questions for right now, we'll go ahead and give you some of your day back. And as I said, please feel free to reach out with any questions that you have, and we'll get you taken care of. So on behalf of the Indiana Patient Safety Center team, we wish you all happy holidays. And if we don't see you within the next couple of days before the end of the year, see you next year. So have a great day, everyone.